So
All right. Good
happy.
evening, everybody. Jeff Kamke here with Dr. Dani. We're going to chat tonight. We're going to go live. We're going to record a podcast. We're like, you know what? Let's just go live. Let's just share it with our channels and talk about all things abundance and inner work, probably, and prosperity. And who knows what'll all come up. Some good stuff. So we've got to know each other in the last, I don't know what, year or two, I guess, Dr. Dani, through the expert panels with Katie and Andrea. And we just wanted to get together tonight and share some fun thoughts. So I guess maybe a good thing, I'll introduce myself for a quick minute and a little bit about what I do, and I'll let you do the same, and then we'll just dive in and see where spirit leads, I guess, right? So
Sounds
so
good
my
to
name is
me.
Jeff Kamke, for most of you that know me on my channels, but I'm a wealth strategist and I do things a little bit differently. We look at wealth strategies, but we also look at the inner work that needs to go along with growing different levels of prosperity in our life. So I'm kind of what you would think as a financial advisor, and doing things a little bit differently there than what normally is done. And then we're also looking at the inner work, doing like bioenergetics and a lot of things on the inner work side that they go hand in hand. There's so many things that go hand in hand with trying to grow money through, learning, through bettering ourselves, and financial tools. So that's what I love to do. Those are my two passions in the world. And so, Dr. Dani, I love that we're going to have this chat tonight. I love what you're up to, and I'm excited to learn more. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself and what you guys are up, or what you're up to.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. The whole idea of actually like coming out on the internet and telling people what you're doing, what your passion is to have these kinds of discussions, like ask each other, like, what is it that you do and why do you do it? And I'm a physician, trained allopathic, traditional medical doctor. And over the years, I have noticed that things shift, things get weird when the moon is full, when Mercury's in retrograde. I've seen these things. Okay. This is like real stuff to me. But I never really dove into like reading charts or looking into astrology or doing anything like that until one day I just sort of gazed up at the sky with my app, and it was
Mm-hmm.
actually my birthday, and I pointed it at the sun. I said, okay, let's see this sun in Leo. Let's see what the sky looks like here. This is so beautiful. Astronomy, astrology. And it was in Cancer. So I thought, okay, maybe my app's broken. Like, I'm a Leo. What's going on here? So then I looked, and then I began this rabbit hole search of like, what's going on? Why is astrology wrong? Why is it not with the sky? It never even dawned on me. I just thought, oh, okay. I trust these people. It's everywhere. Everyone's doing it. It must be accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found just this ragtag bunch of, astrologers that use the actual sky. And I began learning from them and working with them and translating what I already knew into this new way ancient way of practicing astrology. And I also deliver babies. So that's my specialty. I deliver babies. I'm an obstetrician gynecologist. So I have all these little star seeds coming into my life with birthdays. And
I love it.
it just seems so perfectly matched up to have, this access to birth and then charts. So charts and analyzing charts is my life. And what I found is that tropical astrology never really resonated with me at all. And when I began to study my chart myself using the placements of the actual sky, it was so correct. It was so right. And it felt so good to have that affirmation more than anything else, that yes, what I've been feeling was wrong. And so I dived into it a little bit more. I started following Venus cycles. Her cycle's a little bit longer. It's about 20 months. They call her the billionaire planet. So she's all about wealth and abundance and beauty and the physical things we have here on earth, but also enjoyment of those things, just kind of being in that wealth mindset, being in that abundance mindset. And we follow these cycles unconsciously most of the time, but if you do it consciously, you can actually walk through life in a very soul-guided way. And so many things have changed. Like how I deal with my patients has changed. It's become a lot more meaningful to me. My relationship with my husband is a lot deeper and more satisfying and just wonderful. And, my career has just changed its trajectory. So it's been very, very interesting to follow these cycles consciously and for the betterment of my journey,
I love that.
Yeah, so Venus specialist, astrologer, physician. Let's see, what else do I do? I I have a little side business. I read charts, and I also have courses that I've created for other people that want to learn about astronomy and astrology. And my latest course, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this, Jeffrey. You're going to love this. You're going to love this. It's a business and financial astrology course. So enrollment opened yesterday for summer school because summer just started. And it's basically like 4 hours of me just giving you the business through modules. And then once we're done with the modules, there's going to be 2 live Q&A sessions with me during the month of July and August. So you kind of absorb the information, and then you get on a Zoom call with me and a bunch of other people, and we get to kind of hash it out. Like, did you understand it? How can I help you? And so it's really, really fantastic. And we go through the cycles of all the planets. So there's a little bit of astronomy in there. Then we go through the archetypes, but in a financial lens. So if you want to look at an astrological chart, you can say, okay, this placement might indicate this kind of financial energy. It's so fascinating, and it's so useful. Like it's astrology you can actually apply. So I'm really excited about launching this course and getting people into that. So that's what I'm doing right now. I also am a musician and a philosopher, and I love nature, and I love talking about this kind of stuff. So here we are.
I know we joked about going all night tonight. I don't know if I can do that, but it'd be fun. So all right. So I want to back up a little bit. So I'm not that knowledgeable on astrology and stuff, and let me give you kind of my perception of it. I'd love for you to kind of correct where I'm off a little bit, or just expand on kind of the general idea of it. I mean, I've heard about some of the stuff. I've never delved into it a whole lot myself. So my perception is obviously everything is energy. Literally everything, and the planets, the stars, everything is an energy, and there's different types of energy, whether it's male or female, masculine, feminine energies, and then beyond that, there's other, and you'll have to kind of fill in some of these gaps for me. Understanding that as the solar system is in its movements, and certain planets come closer to others, that those energies affect us in certain ways. They can affect our biology. They can affect our, like you said, being in the doctor role. I know I've always heard like blood flow increases during full moons, and menstrual cycles can change during full moons. So there's obviously these effects that take place by the planetary bodies. So that's honestly about the limitation of my understanding of everything with astrology. I, get the general gist of it, but going much deeper than that, I'd love for you to, anybody who's watching or will watch, and then me, to kind of take this very kindergarten level approach to my understanding and like build on a little bit, because I'd love to understand it at a deeper level. Because I love what you're introducing there, as far as like, there's this tool that we have of looking at the sky and understanding its relevance to us and the cycles and patterns and seasons that we're in, and how it applies to phases of our life and things we're going through, and how we can navigate those things with more ease and flow. So that's where I would love to know more. So pick up wherever you feel relevant with what I just said.
All right. Well, I think probably I just need to back up and do the basics, right?
Yeah.
So if you can turn out all the lights around you at night on a new moon where there's no moon, and just look up in the sky, you're going to see above you just the expanse of the universe. Okay. Everything that we can see with the naked eye. If you were to get a telescope, you could see other things. You could see deeper out there. The zodiac, the constellations that we care about, are along the path that the sun and the moon and Mars and Venus and Jupiter and Saturn and all of them follow. It's called an ecliptic. So it stretches across the sky. It's about a 10-degree span right there. So wherever you see the sun, that's where the planets are too. The other constellations can be important too in some cosmologies, but for modern Western astrology, we are following this band, this zoo of creatures around which our solar system flies. Okay, so that's fine. There are constellations there. They have the names everybody's used to hearing from. They're hearing, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all those zodiac names. Those are constellations in that ecliptic. All right. So by understanding those names of those constellations, then you can in your mind say, okay, I know exactly where that star is or where that planet is. So if someone says to me, well, Mars is in Aries right now, then I know to look over there if I know where Aries is right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so there are other names you can give to the sky, right? You can call Aries blueberry or May or January, and Mars is still there. It's still in that same exact spot. But what constellational astrology does, the way the ancients did it, is they looked at the constellation of Aries and said Mars is in Aries. Whereas a tropical astrologer will tell you that Mars is in Taurus right now. Now,
Gotcha.
why is that important? Okay. They're two very different energies.
Mm-hmm.
The story that the skies tells us, those energies are available to us all the time. Aries energy is always available. Taurus energy is always available. I have a free course on my website if you want to learn about all these energies. There's no strings attached. Just go, you sign up, and it's like 6 modules. I teach you all the energies, everything you need to know to kind of read what a sign, house, and planet mean. So you have that energy, but it's available everywhere. The reason we focus on one spot is because the planet's there, right? So you're going to say, okay, Mars and Aries, what is that energy? That's this kind of energy, whereas Mars and Taurus is a different kind of energy. What are you resonating with something that's kind of constructed, right? Like it's a month, it's an idea, it's not the actual constellation. I hope, okay. Could you get me there? Do I need to back up?
I think I get you. Yeah.
Right, because, okay, so let's say you're going to give somebody financial advice
Mm-hmm.
and you're telling them that Jupiter is in Taurus. 1 year ago, Jupiter was still sitting in the constellation of Aries, and all the astrologers were talking about how, oh, Jupiter's about to enter Taurus. It's going to be a big abundance time. And that's not where it was. And so it really, really bothered me. I was like, oh my gosh, people are out there giving financial advice, and the constellations are not, I mean, the planet is not where they say it is.
Gotcha.
And why it's so popular and why it's so incorrect at the same time is baffling. But there's several different reasons. And I'm not here to push one or the other. But what I can tell you is that if you do practice, if you're listening to this and you practice tropical astrology, I promise you, once you come to constellational astrology, you will never go back. Because once you're in alignment with what's actually happening in the universe, you're in touch with the idea of astronomy and astrology being the original sacred science, the seed science to all other sciences, all other studies. This is the practice of observing movements through time and measuring those. I mean, geometry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physics, mathematics, medicine, psychology, psychiatry, all of that. When to have a strategy for war. It was all planned based on the actual positions in the sky. So I'm telling most people, call the background of it whatever you want, but the kind of astrology I do is I use the constellations in the background. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to do that in the modern age, don't you? We're not going to be hung or beheaded for actually using science, right? It's not the dark ages anymore. Let's use real observations from space to deal with what's going on out there. I mean, they look at the energies of planets we can't see. So let's at least use the sky. I mean, you could zoom in with your telescope and you'd be able to see, Neptune, for example, but you can't see that with your naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of like the idea behind astrology, is that you can take these archetypes and you can not only explain certain things, you can explain patterns in your life. You can also see what's been going on in your past life. You can see what your current destiny might be here in this physical realm. You can see how you're going to do it in relationships. You can see what kind of work is going to make you really happy. You can see where your luck is. It's fantastic, all the amazing things that you can do with just one natal chart. So
very cool. All right, that gives me a good basic understanding. So that brings me to another kind of question that I've wondered about, because I've heard different, teachers and mentors talk about, how you use astrology and how it tangibly you use it day to day. Because I know some people that they can live their whole life, like they want to look up their horoscope, look at the astrology, and like whatever it says, they like have made up their mind that that's what their life is going to play out that day. And it's
Right, like destiny versus free will
yeah.
kind of
So like
energy. Mhm.
I want to hear your thoughts around that because I've always heard from like a couple of people that I've really trusted mentor wise that have said, using astrology is kind of like a weather report. Like,
Exactly.
like what could happen, how to prepare, maybe steps to take one way or the other, whether it's positive things, negative things, whatever. And then you still have the ability to create your reality. No matter what the stars are doing, no matter what the planets are doing, like they can assist you, they can leverage things that you can ride that energy of whatever's there, but at the end of the day you can still control what you're doing and that. So expand on that or whatever you feel, but I've always wanted to know, like, from somebody that knows this stuff, to like unpack that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, well, that's a big one. So destiny versus free will, right? And destiny
Hmm.
is usually like the cards you're given, like I'm 5 feet tall. There's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
It is what it is. I have blue eyes. I can put in contacts and change that. But so what do I do with that 5 foot tall blue eye? There's so many different ways that I could manifest that. One of my favorite things is to have somebody look at their chart in a whole different way. So this just happened to me yesterday. I had a young lady that I had a connection call with, and she already knew her astrology, but she used a different system. And she started listing off all these terrible aspects in her chart and all the terrible things that have happened to her in her life. And then, I said, okay, well, this could explain that, and this could explain that. But what if you use this energy this way? And I gave her the other polarity of it, because planets, signs, houses, aspects, they all have polarity. They all have like light and shadow to them. Venus
Hmm.
is the billionaire planet. She's very benefic, but she can manifest in very ugly ways when that manifestation creation energy is blocked by a quote unquote bad aspect or a pattern or an emotional reaction, right? And so you can really get at those little things that really hold people back and like keep them from truly approaching their destiny. Um, so yeah, I think this is what she had. She had Neptune, which is attains enlightenment through all that's possible. It's the spiritual planet, the cosmic shaman of the zodiac. Um, it's like boundless, it's illusions, it's dreams, it's the spirit realm, next to Uranus, the rebel planet, the astrologer, the energy of change, quick change, electricity. And it's all in Sagittarius, which is faith. And then I think she had one other bad, like Mars was there, I think. And it was this just really painful history with having to use pharmaceuticals and other addictions and things like that. And all of that could have been taken that way with those three planets together in Sagittarius. But if you look for the light, the higher polarity of it, I say, what about these three things? She goes, well, yeah, I'm in school and I'm doing this and this is what I'm working towards. I said, those are all so great, so positive. So you can help people focus on the positive things in their life, which I think is really the how you start to flourish and to awaken into your power, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think I think actually the young lady I was talking to is on right now. She's on my channel. She just said hello. Thank you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So that gives me an idea. So I guess anything further to dive into on, like, when somebody's wanting to make transformation, like what you just mentioned there, like using astrology as a tool to understand patterns, understand your past. Like, how do you see that as is it just through like awareness that somebody can help make that shift in their life and reframing what's gone on and seeing it from a different perspective that allows them to move forward using the tool of astrology? Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, it's almost as if once you have that awareness, you're free from it.
Hmm.
It's almost like you can take the chart and objectify something so that there's no emotion. You can say, oh, okay, that would explain that. Okay, now I understand. Now I can dive into the energy of these two issues a little bit more deeply and and use the benefit of them both to help me through it.
Gotcha.
Sometimes you need more specific examples, you know. I can use myself as a perfect example. The last eclipse was very profound for me. I knew it was coming for months. You know, everyone knows it's coming. The Great American Eclipse, the big solar eclipse. You know, I got to see it actually, which was really, really cool. I mean, amazing. My first totality ever. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and it was interesting because there was also a Mercury retrograde at the same time. Okay, and 3 months before was another Mercury retrograde, and I gave notice at my practice. That was when I said 12 years, I'm done, I'm out, I'm doing something different. And then the weekend before the eclipse was my last week there, like last time I had to work there. So like, quit your job, like you don't work for 2 weeks, there's an eclipse in the middle. It was almost like this whole portal of energy that you get with eclipse just was manifest in my life, and it was perfectly timed. And if I hadn't been anticipating the change, the things that needed to happen prior to that, I don't know that I would have gone through it as gracefully. It might have been more dramatic. It might have been more difficult. It might have been, do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like big changes are going to happen. Things are still can suck. I'm not saying like your life's going to be amazing, but like you'll have a little bit of a reason for it. You'll go, okay, I was real emotional today. Oh yeah, the moon is in, this degree of Cancer for me, and every month when it does that, I feel really emotional. I should have known to sat out today, cancel all of my appointments, sit by the pool, not dealt with people.
Right.
So yes, you can direct your life that way as well. There's also derivations that you can do of the chart to talk about phases in general for people. So if they're feeling like a change is coming for them or transformation is coming for them, you can look at what's called their progressed energy. I mean, that's really kind of advanced stuff, but that can help sort of guide that person too, because that particular cycle will show them an area of their life where they need to focus on. So within the chart, there are areas of your life too. So when something's happening, let's say in the 5th house, right? That's the area of the chart where that event's happening for them natally. You explore that area a little bit with them. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then also you can do the transiting planets and what they're doing to your own natal resonance. And then you can just read what the planets are doing to each other without any natal chart. The most impactful, the most useful is to have a personalized forecast done using what's in the sky right now against your own natal chart, because that resonance has changed over time for you, and it's going to be different for you than it would be for me.
Excellent. Very cool.
Yeah.
So I know we've talked before a little bit. You've hinted at it. I'd like if you're willing to share more. I know you've got a course that goes into some of this stuff, so I don't want to obviously give it away. But one of the things that fascinates me ever since we met is you've talked a little bit in different expert panels about, because my background's money, it's wealth, it's the financial strategies, and you've talked about astrology and how that plays into different market cycles, and whether it's macroeconomics or microeconomics for individual people and cycles that they're in their own personal journey of whether they're in a poverty cycle or a wealth cycle or wherever that is, but then obviously on a global scale and the economics of nations and stock markets and all those kind of things. So I'd love to hear what you're willing to share without spilling the beans too much from your course, but some of those connections are very fascinating to me and how that all plays in.
Yeah, what I might need to do is actually, I don't know if it would be helpful to have a chart out or not. Remember I was talking a little bit about Jupiter and Taurus, how that hadn't happened quite yet last year, and that's when tropical astrologers were telling us Jupiter was in Taurus. Jupiter did enter into Taurus very recently, like within the last 2 months. And Jupiter did that with the sun and with Venus and with Mercury. And the sun is the highest expression of your spiritual self. We've already talked about Venus, the billionaire planet, just bringing all kinds of love, beauty, abundance, and things to your life. But Jupiter is also the millionaire planet, right? So Jupiter and
Mm.
Venus are the benefics in a financial chart. So if you have well aspected Venus and Jupiter, especially if they're conjunct together like they were, you can have a very nice time. It also depends on where it is for you. Uranus was also conjunct with Jupiter the same time that they crossed into Taurus together. And Uranus is sudden change, unexpected change. So everyone is kind of like a little bit leery about what kind of abundance was going to come through with Jupiter's expansion into Taurus. Taurus is also associated with Venus. It's earth energy. It's the things we have. It's the things we love. It's the abundance. It's comfort. It's the here and the now. So all of this very comfortable, very abundant energy coming through with a little bit of a twist of change. So disruptions, unexpected changes were expected. Now, all those planets, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Sun, have moved a little bit past that place, but Uranus is a slow mover. Uranus is right there still, kind of hanging out right at the edge of Taurus. And there's a star there that Uranus will transit over probably the beginning of next year. And it's one of the stars in the constellation of the Pleiades. It's called Alcyon. Now, this star astrology is a little bit different because the stars don't actually move from one constellation to the other. They kind of stay there. They're a fixed point. So this star, the Pleiades, everybody knows what the Pleiades are, right? You look up in the sky, you've seen the Seven Sisters.
I don't know that well.
You
No,
don't know
but
that one?
no,
Oh,
no.
really? Okay. Well, I think a lot of people do know the Pleiades or the Seven Sisters. If you ever talk to any spiritual people, there's, visitors from other, that Pleiades is one of them.
Yep, I've heard the term a lot, but to
Yeah, well, it
specifically
is
define it, I
actually,
couldn't.
yeah, it is actually a star cluster in the
Mhm.
constellation of Taurus. And when I kind of have a feeling that when Uranus passes over this star cluster, that there's going to be a lot of upheaval in our general markets. Uranus is not so nice sometimes, and that's one of the key points on the zodiac. So we want to watch that. That's like early next year. Also, the other thing that you can watch is the lunar node cycle. So, for example, the lunar nodes, it's where eclipses happen, and it's where the moon's orbital path around the Earth crosses the solar system ecliptic. They're off by about 5 degrees. So if you were to lay that zodiac band out, the moon goes like this. And when it goes up, it's a node. When it goes down over it, it's also a node. And when those nodes move in a clockwise fashion in about a 19-year cycle, and Louise McWhirter, who wrote this book, she did it all in tropical, but a couple of conclusions that she came up with, one was that whenever the lunar north node, when the moon is moving up above the ecliptic, whenever that is in the sign of Aquarius, we go to an economic low point. So that sign would translate to the constellation of Capricorn. Now, currently the north node is in Pisces, and probably within about a year and a half to 2 years, it will be trending into that low economic zone. Okay. So you have Uranus over the Pleiades, and then you've got the north node transiting into constellational Capricorn. This may not be so good. Plus, with all the artificial bolstering of creation and printing of money, it may be a house of falling cards. I don't know, but that's the feeling I get when I look at all that astronomical energy coming together in that part of the sky, especially in history and everything that I've been studying to get ready for this course. Like, this is what we're seeing. So not this year. This year will be okay. But 2025, I would get ready. 26, I would definitely be ready. And then just hang on to your hats. And these are cycles, guys. It's not the end of the world. They come and they go. And so whatever you would do in an ebbing cycle, financially speaking, of course, you'd want to talk to your financial advisors. But, whatever they tell you to do in times of retraction, that's what you do to hold on.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I've been working with a couple clients this week, and I'm not a true financial advisor. We do things a little bit differently, a wealth strategist, so I can't, make suggestions. So I'll put that disclaimer right here, right now. But it's interesting that you say that because, a lot of times when the markets are doing really good and then there's a crash, there's this like, oh, the world's going to end, like you said. And one of the things I've talked about, we do an agent panel every week, some of us agents, and we were just talking about this earlier on Wednesday at our agent panel about during economic downturns, if you have the right perspective, number one, the right mindset around it, then you have some finances in order where you have an opportunity fund where you've got money and capital to deploy. There's great opportunities when there's a downturn. So,
Yes, like
that's
buying Bitcoin when it was 30 cents, that kind
exactly.
of that kind of turmoil is what's
Hmm.
coming, I think, with the Uranus
Yeah. Yep.
passing over the Pleiades. So,
Yeah, so I
yeah.
think, taking that knowledge and as you said, we talked about already, like taking what the sky is showing us and okay, it could be a negative thing, but when you reframe it, and this speaks directly into what we do on finances, is being prepared for the times that are going to be a little bit rough because I go back to, I don't remember if it was, I think turn of the century, like the 1900s, there was one of the wealthy people, Aristotle Onassis. I've always heard this story. And it was, I think, right after the First World War, and like shipping had pretty much come to a halt. And you couldn't really, you know, try to sell a boat. Nobody wanted a boat. And he understood at that point, like, hey, once the war settles down and everything kind of goes back, shipping will increase because of the needs of the war and, troops being in different countries and finding pizza and all this different stuff. So he bought up all the ships. And then
Yeah,
once the economy settled, he became the wealthiest person in the
Houston
world
pretty, yeah, absolutely.
because of a bad thing. He set himself up for a prime opportunity. And a lot of us have that opportunity if we know that, hey, we're at, at least here in America, we've been on a 10+ year run where the markets have been great and everybody thinks it's going to continue to be great. And so obviously the cycle is going to change, but you can position yourself to take advantage of opportunities. It could be opportunities in real estate, it could be opportunities in your business, could be opportunities that maybe the stars will help you point you towards
Well,
to what those are.
yes, because if you were to look at where Uranus right now is matched up to either your company's natal chart or the
Mm,
trade that you're watching, if you were to put them together on top of each other, you could see how Uranus is going to affect that chart.
interesting.
What house is
Okay.
that? So if that's the eighth house, for example, well, then it might be time to take that company through bankruptcy or title, whatever it has to do, because eighth house is death, and death is a transformation. So, okay, yeah, you got Uranus in Taurus in your eighth house on your company. I think, it might be a good idea. You may want to look at everything else, use this as an affirmation or not, but then look at everything else and consider that. So, or, it could be in the second house, which could mean that there could be a whole bunch of money coming your way, just depends.
Hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how to exactly ask this, but I'm curious about it. I've always been
Okay.
curious about this as well. So, we've already laid out the stars can give us hints into what's going on, and we have the power to change that. It's not a destiny thing. It's just a roadmap of potentials. So, as we look at like what we've just been talking about financially, and there's market cycles and how that follows the astrology. Are there resources that track that like you took like a graph of the stock market and you took a graph of like the cycles of different aspects of astrology that correlate? Are they like always pretty darn close? I mean, obviously, I'm
Um,
curious about that, and even for people, how it shows up in their own life. Is there a high percentage of the time that it's pretty accurate? Yeah, that's something I've never really heard like definitively like how that plays in, because obviously we've got free will, we can do things differently, and there's a lot of moving pieces with that. So I'd love for you to share a
yeah,
little bit on that.
yeah. I thought, well, maybe what I can do is grab an example. That might be helpful. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, this might be fun. Um, okay, let me get back into Restream and share. Uh-oh, how do I share? Choose what to share. Entire screen. Okay, there we go. Okay. Okay. Share. Audio share. I don't know. Okay, nothing's happening. Ruh-roh. I feel like I'm blocked up.
Wonder if I need to give you permission or anything, maybe?
It just feels like everything kind of froze for a second. So I'm just going to go back in here and see if it will allow me to share. Oh, I had to select it. There we go. Okay.
Cool.
All right. Can you see my, let me get my screen up, I guess. Let's do that. Can you see?
Let me turn it on. There we go. I had to turn it on. So cool. Yep, I can see it now.
Perfect. So this is the company I work for, HCA, right?
Okay, cool.
So what I did is I took the key degrees. So there's a, wherever the sun is in the chart is considered a key lunar degrees. And so I plotted the lunar degrees as well as the, this is the star Sirius, which is very important for anything that's being traded in the United States. So two very key important points. So I went ahead and I plotted these to see if there was anything that kind of correlated with it. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes that's fine. But there, you can plot other things too, like the eclipse, for example. Like, I don't know, that looks like there's some kind of correlation with an eclipse, don't you think? A little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And so HCA might be a company that we watch eclipses with and see what their trends are.
Interesting.
Right? Maybe not so much the critical degree, but definitely the eclipse cycle is important for them. I would say also that Mercury retrograde might be important for this company too. This one, though, was associated with an eclipse. So my theory for HCA would be, yeah, still probably very much eclipse energy for them. Then we went out 5 years and we did Venus retrogrades. And it looks like Venus has a stabilizing influence, it would seem like there's a downturn and then it kind of stabilized it and brought it back up. And then here it was going up, 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 and it stabilized it again, a stabilization. So Venus retrograde might be a time to maybe not try to pursue much, but kind of hold on tight because it's a stabilizer. Yeah, so you can do stuff like that. And I do a couple of other companies in that course. But yeah, basically that's how you would do that for a company. You want to know their like the moment they were first traded. And if you don't, then you would use either 12 o'clock or whenever the stock market opens, like 8:30.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you can get like first trade days, like the birthday, so to speak, through Moody's. You can call the company as well. Excuse me, things like that. Yeah, so I'm looking at a couple of companies like that right now. We're going to do a mock. We have a little app where we can do mock exchanges in real time and see how it goes. So we're gonna play with that and see if that works.
That's cool.
I mean, why not?
So are there books and stuff? Like, have people written books around all this that trade stocks based on astrology and they're, millionaires or billionaires? Like, is there anything like that out there?
There are a lot of people out there. But I think that a lot of it is done in other countries.
Oh, okay.
I don't think a lot of people do it here in the United States. If they do, they keep their secret pretty locked up. Because I haven't really been able to find a whole lot of sources on how to do this. There are 10-hour YouTube courses out there that are done entirely in India.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you understand that language, great. I almost thought about calling a friend of mine from medical school and be like, can you watch this with me and translate? Because this is a lot of data and I can't. Or if they are teaching it, they're teaching it in English, which is their second language. So also very difficult to understand. Sure. Also, Vedic astrology is completely different than Western tropical astrology. It's a whole nother can of worms right there.
Mm-hmm.
So
very cool. So, all right. So my train of thought as we were discussing all this stuff here and learning about it at a deeper level. So we talked about free will and destiny. So how does intuition play into this? Like if you have more data from your astrology report, does that help fine tune your intuitive abilities? Sometimes your intuition counter to what the stars are seeing just based on other factors. Talk a little bit about that. I'd be curious.
Well, I think a lot of times I won't even look at my own astrology because I'm so busy looking at everybody else's, and I'll go through a thing, and then I'll just go through it mindfully and like, spiritually, like you're supposed to. Sometimes I have breakdowns or whatever, or giggle fights or whatever. You go through life. If I look back, I'm like, dang, that's why, you know, if I go back in time and I look and see where stuff was, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly why that was happening to me. So yeah, it's interesting. It really syncs up quite a bit. I can't believe it sometimes, because I'm a person of data and I need to know, why it works, and for it to be just so accurate all the time. It's like a tool. It's like a superpower. It's encoded in the sky, and all those centuries of storytelling of those archetypes and the energies there gives us, I think, the keys. And it's spiritual, but it's not religious. So it's not a cult. I'm not asking for you to come to my church and pray with me or anything like that. And I think as long as you follow, the golden rules of the universe, like love God, love your neighbor, be kind, those kind of things, it's bound to help you manifest and go towards your highest purpose. I always say that the planets want to help us. So, yeah. So someone, Teresa Zuzvel, just commented, she said, if you want a deep dive on astrology and financial markets combined into numerology and gematria, Jordan over at Waters Above has been charting a lot of info. Okay, cool. Are they tropical or are they constellational, I wonder?
Good to know.
Yeah. So I basically dived into the textbooks. I tried to get as much as I could. And then I did take a couple of courses that are offered out there just to see, but it was only a small part of what I'm pulling together. I took a course here and took a course here, and I read one book 4 times and highlighted and changed all the tropical to, it's crazy. But, once I pulled it all together, it just made so much sense. It just started clicking into place. And then I did a few free readings for some of my colleagues to fine tune the reading. And now I have a purpose and prosperity reading. So we look at, sun, moon, rising. We look at the 2 points called lot of fortune and lot of spirit, which one is destiny and the other one is luck. Or one is luck and one is free will, right? So the lot of fortune is your puzzle box that you're given with all the pieces. And the lot of spirit is, how are you going to put that puzzle together? Where are you going to put that puzzle together? What are you going to do once it's done? So there's a combination of both, I think, in any modality that you choose to walk through life with. There's a little bit of both of that.
I love it. All right, so you brought up religion and stuff, so I got to go here now since you brought it up. So I grew up in the church, and there's always a segment of the church that's a little iffy on this kind of stuff, right? And the new agey stuff, right? So I'd share a little bit about that whole concept, because I know in the Bible it talks about how there's different parts of the Bible, different stories where they're looking to the sky for direction, and there's, I think, even specifically talking about astrology in there, or an astrologist in there. So I'm not a biblical expert by any means, but just knowing from what I grew up, and this kind of this polar opposites of opinion on it, and since getting more away from traditional religion, seeing a lot of the unity and everything, and seeing how so many different belief systems are talking the same talk, just arguing about the words that are being used to describe different things. So I'd love to hear from your perspective about just astrology and maybe some of its roots and where it came from, but then how religion is tied in, whether it's part of it, against it, how, just unpack that one a little bit. I'm interested to hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of mythological stories associated with the names of our planets, right? So, Zeus, Jupiter, the king of the gods, that sort of thing. So, and where does mythology come from? I mean, it's like, I took a history of theater class my freshman year of college, long time ago, and it basically religion started with mythology, and theater and entertaining started from telling the stories, passing down the oral traditions. And so there's in some ways, there's a very strict way of telling that story. And if you deviate from that story, then you deviate from the religion, right? And then
Mhm.
in some stories of old and some mythologies, there's not as much of a component, and there's been changes to it over time through the lens of, that particular culture. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we're all part of one spirit. I'm with you. It's like a unity
Mhm.
deal. You know, uh, we've all lived each other's lifetime, and so we should have at least a tiny bit of compassion for one another. Even if I don't, where I'm sitting right now, don't understand what you're going through, the tiniest amount of compassion and forgiveness and understanding can go so far. And it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. You don't have to believe in Jesus or Buddha or anybody, but like just that. And it starts with compassion for yourself too. A lot of people come to astrology just completely like trashing themselves, throwing shade on themselves, not believing in themselves, not thinking that they've got the power or the energy or the gifts to express themselves or to shine. And one of the things I like to do is to help them see where they're shining. So
I love that.
yeah.
Well, cool. So we've talked a lot about astrology. Is there anything you want to talk about on the giving birth to star seed side? I know you're a traditionally trained allopath for
Mhm.
doing that, but do you get into like home births and
Oh
or
no,
that's you're
no.
straight? Are you straight hospital with
I
all that
work
stuff?
I work at the hospital, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But I'm
All
not gonna run you back to a C-section just because 'cause I'm bored. It's not like that. It's, you
right.
know,
Right.
um, 150 years ago, one or both of the mother or the baby would die 50% of the time. So I think we've
Right.
come a long way.
Totally.
Are all doctors as kind and as, like, patient as me? No, but, I
Sure.
like to, as long as everything's good and everybody looks happy, I let
Yeah.
them do what they need to do, and then if I need to intervene, I talk to them and I say, "Let me help you." You know?
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So
Yeah.
I do love that work. It's really incredible, and it's such an amazing experience when a new soul comes into the world. Um, One of my colleagues asked me, astrology colleagues asked me, "Do you
Mm.
clear their karma when they come in?" I'm like, "No, no, I'm not in the business of clearing karma. I just welcome them, make sure they know it's going to be okay, and just bless them, on their journey and wish them luck."
Mm-hmm.
So, because yeah, I mean, some of the idea with astrology, it does kind of go into the spiritual a lot too, because you talk about like past lives in astrology sometimes too. You
Mm-hmm.
almost can't get away from it if you're going to look at astrology. There's a
Right.
past and there's a before now, and then there will be an after now. And I think that's a useful way to look at life too, that this is just a temporary thing.
Yeah.
It's part of a greater cycle as well.
Mm-hmm.
Birth, death, rebirth, growth, decay. It's all part of these cycles that just keep moving through time and space. And we're all
I
part of
agree
it.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a few things from that. My wife, we've got two kids. We were going for a home birth the first time, had a C-section, so thank God for those. Thank God for when things don't go right, right? Second one, we did have a home birth, and I think throughout both children having, just there for along the ride. The guy doesn't do a whole lot, but just
Mm-mm.
understanding what we've learned about, birth and what a spiritual process that is. And, there's so many aspects to, our energy and what we bring in, before conception, after conception, or after, birth, and, just how you nurture the child and all the energetic imprints that can take place. And like, it's such a powerful spiritual process. It's not just, a blob of cells that pops out and they're dumb and stupid. It's much more the opposite. And some things that, my wife and I have really, understood at a deeper level is like they're the gift, they're the spiritual teacher to help us see things that, we need to heal within ourselves. And a lot of the patterns that start showing up as children age, behavioral patterns or rebelling or different things, like, well, you got to look back at yourself as the parent and, okay, what are you projecting into it? What is your energy? How are you coming, to the conversation, or just where's your energy meeting your child's energy, and what is that bringing out of you that is there for an opportunity to be healed? I think that's one of the really cool things. And that whole idea of the spiritual power of all this, and you said before and after, this is just one place that we're manifested at one point. My dad passed away on Valentine's Day earlier this year, as you know, and
I remember that. I'm so
I've always been intrigued with near-death experiences and just kind of, the bigger life questions that we have, like how do we get here? What's this all about? Like depending on your religious beliefs or your viewpoint on things, like, I know for me growing up in the church, it was like, I'm not sure where we were before, but we came to Earth. We're here. We're either going to go to hell or heaven, and that's it. And I'm like, seems a little dwarfing of the magnificence of God that He created all that He did, and it's just like a one-stop shop, and you got two outcomes. Like, there's probably a little bit more than that, and so it's
Mhm.
been really cool to delve into near-death experiences, not only to understand the other side after my dad's passing and stuff, but just to try do the best we can here on Earth to understand how all of this works and where we came from. And there's people that remember lives before. I've got a mentor, Dr. Sue Morter, that does bioenergetic work. She can remember 22 lifetimes in the past. She can remember doing things as a sphinx in Egypt. She can remember, actually, I believe, like seeding the planet with different species and different animals and different things like that. Like she was whatever energy and whatever that was long, 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 obviously time ago. So it's really intriguing to me when you have people that have legitimate experiences. They're not, whacked out. They're legitimately remembering this
Mhm.
stuff. And then people that have the near-death experiences where they're on the other side for a period of time and what they experience, and bringing that back. And I've recently watched a Sean Ryan podcast where he had on the he's a pastor now, but he was an engineer before and got exposed to some near death experience, like files basically, that he wanted to prove that God wasn't real and that near death experiences weren't real. And as he did that, he has now wrote, I think, like 6 or 8 books about, how all of his research, he's interviewed over 1,500 people that have had near death experiences and compiled commonalities and similar experiences that have happened when people go to the other side, and that proves that there's a higher power. It proves that there's more than just, we're here on earth and after this we just go back to dirt and that's it, that we are an eternal energy, and that energy, there's more to it at the consciousness level as far as upgrading our consciousness level and being here on earth, and what we learn and what we take away from this existence goes forth with us through the rest of our journey and whatever all that looks like. So it's been really cool. So I'm glad you touched on those couple points, because it's been fascinating for me recently with my dad's transitioning, and just some experiences I've had with him. Not too many, but a few where he's spoken to me, and you can feel his presence and those kind of things. Like, yeah, we're definitely, there's something more to all of this than what some may think.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, what about mediums and psychics that can actually like pick out this stuff that
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, we're definitely. Today I actually had the third person tell me that I was probably beheaded in a previous life
Oh wow.
because I was bringing out information that was like so true and not allowed to be said.
Yeah.
And everything in my personal natal chart suggests that that's where that would have happened, in the expression of truth that's not fully accepted yet, kind of a
Yep.
futuristic truth, so to speak. And that, there's all this fear and uh, lack around being able to express myself. So I saw that in my chart, and I've been on this journey to be out there, to tell people the journey, to tell them what,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm feeling it, you probably are too, you know. And
Yeah.
I would probably consider myself a pretty normal person, and I'm open to these experiences. There's a book out there called Spirit Babies, and it talks about the spirit baby realm through the eyes of this medium that lived in California. I forgot his name, but it's such a good book. How he communicated with the spirit babies and helped them connect with the parents that they wanted to be incarnated with.
Mm.
And he goes through all of it. He goes through twins, he goes through miscarriage, he goes through abortion, he goes through like how to see them, how to meditate as as parents, and he gives you all these wonderful anecdotes. And so, the babies might actually choose the parents.
Mm.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
It is. My wife talked about that. I forget, she read a book during, I think, our daughter's pregnancy, or when she was pregnant with our daughter, I don't remember what culture it was, but there it might be like an African tribe or something. But they did just that. They would actually, when they felt like as husband and wife they were ready to conceive, they would actually do like spiritual rituals ahead of time to connect with the spirit on the other side, and then like draw it in. And then, once they conceived, then they were already like they'd already communicated and built an energetic connection to that spirit before it even entered the physical. And then once it did, like they basically let the child name, like the name would come up and maybe the ceremonies or whatever that they were doing, even before birth, like they knew who this child was intimately by name and by, energetic imprint. Like there was this deep connection and bond long before there was even, the birth. And I thought that was really, really cool. My wife and I said, if we ever get pregnant again, like we need to do something more like that, because that's really taking the fullness of the spiritual process that all this is. It's so much more profound and magical than especially here in the Western world that we leave it to be, where it's just this,
It's very
like I said, blob
medicalized.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, very mechanistic, and there's not a whole lot of the real true power there that is harnessed and realized. And I think that's something that, like I already said, with just realizing the power that children have, and just shifting that. And as we were learning things about the birthing process in children when we were first pregnant with our son, the very first child we had, looking at other cultures and looking even over in Europe and how they saw things differently, and the research that came out about skin to skin contact and what that does, and just over and over all this different stuff. It's like,
And
oh my
yeah,
gosh,
and
this
not
is,
cutting the cord right away. Yeah.
yeah, delayed cord clamping and all this different kind of stuff, and what it does, long term for the child. I mean, I had a situation when I was born, I had low blood sugar. And so I was in an incubator for like 10 or 11 days. And I still have, deal with things with the imprinting of that disconnection from my mother,
Oh,
because
wow.
she's told me like she'd come up to the hospital and visit me, but she wasn't there. She wasn't holding me, and she didn't know. She had no idea. She's just doing what the doctors told her. So, in the most critical moments out of womb, I was left in a warming bed, and it was like that imprint and what that does energetically for somebody, is so profound. And, sometimes it is the situation, right? It is what it is. It's, a higher thing there of, the lessons that need to come out of that, and that's part of what you came here to learn and grow and all that. I get that there's that, but still, once you realize what that impact can be as a parent on your children, like then you can make different decisions. You can do things better and learn and grow maybe a little quicker than you would have without
Mhm.
understanding the profound impact of how you show up with your kids, and how you know your past affects them, and how you keep the cycles going if you don't heal the wounds and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's really, really cool, diving into all this.
Yeah, I did put your birth date into my software program. So now
Okay.
I'm very keen to see if that premature or that birth trauma is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah, yeah,
there's a
yeah.
specific spot in the chart that you can look for that. And we'll do that in just a minute or so. But
Sure.
one of the things that you can also do with astrology is predict the most fertile window for a female.
Okay. There you go.
So the day that we were born, the moon is always at a certain angle to the sun, right? Like
Okay.
tonight is a full moon, so it's 180 degrees. So any young female born tonight uh, on that full moon, as she ages and gets into her fertility windows, it will be full moons when she's most fertile.
Interesting.
Now,
Okay.
if it's in a quarter moon or a new moon, you would also want to do that, regardless of where she is in her menstrual cycle. That's the most interesting part.
Really.
hmm You
That's
can,
crazy.
yeah, so you can use it to prevent birth control, and you can also potentially use it to predict the gender.
Oh, really?
hmm
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
very,
all kinds of neat things you can do with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. I'm sure you're just scratching the surface of all the possibilities and all areas of our life, right?
Yeah, someone told me today that I should write a book.
Right. There you
I was like, which one? She goes, all of them.
go.
Yeah, got enough
That'd be
in
quite
there to
the,
write. Yeah.
yeah. That's an endeavor, I think, to
So let
do
me
that, but
ask
it'd be
you,
cool.
do you know your sun sign? Did they tell you what your sun sign is?
I don't. I don't
You
know
don't?
much of that. No.
Oh, I'm surprised you hanging out with Andrea and those guys. You don't know your sun sign.
Right. Well, even my wife's into all that, but I just
Does she know your
never.
sun sign?
She might. She's not here to ask, but
Okay,
she
okay,
might.
okay. Well, I know your true sun sign.
Perfect.
Yeah. So let me see if I can open it here. Yep, it's right here. We can do that. All right. So I gotta share again. Share entire screen. Click on that. See, look how much faster I am. You just have to try something you've never tried before, and it just works out.
Right.
All right, let's get that. So that's you, right? March 11th, 1986.
That's me.
All right. So I have you as a Pisces sun.
Okay.
Yeah, which you might already still be a Pisces sun if you are following traditional tropical, because they're off about 24 degrees.
Okay.
But one of the things I noticed right off the bat, Jeffrey, was that your ascending, your rising sign, is in the constellation of Ophiuchus, the 13th sign. You're like, wait, what? There's 13 signs? Yes. So this right here is where the Milky Way center is. It's the galactic center. It's where when you look off in actually probably in about a month, if you look to the south around sunset, you will see Scorpio, Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, the Milky Way center. If you can get into, at least in the northern hemisphere, if you can get into a dark place so that you can see the sky, you can see the Milky Way. This is that area of the sky right there. And Ophiuchus is the 13th sign. It's the sign that's been left out. It's the sign that's been not included in tropical astrology. And it's this part of the sky that's of the energy of the ascended masters. So like Christ of Judea, Imhotep, Buddha, all these guys. That's so just like, Jupiter gets Sagittarius, king of the planets, like the ascended masters get this space. And what's interesting about this space is that these two constellations are not next to each other. They're actually on top of each other. So you've got Ophiuchus kind of up here and Scorpio kind of down here. Does that make sense? So anyway, so you have Ophiuchus rising. That means that people see you as a spiritual person. They see you as someone with the energy of the ascended master bringing through the truths. So that's very cool.
That is cool.
That makes your chart ruler Chiron, which is an asteroid between Saturn and Uranus, has a 50-year orbit, and it has to do with our wounds. And it's wounds of security and wounds of comfort. So those are your deep subconscious wounds, which is super interesting because of what you went through as a baby.
Yeah.
So that security, that you get can be very hard.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Very interesting.
Cool. Your this is your lot of fortune right here. This is a point that describes your level of luck. And with Saturn right here, it usually means that the wealth and the abundance come later in life. Yeah. And I have Jupiter in Aquarius as well. So big futuristic ideas for you, for sure. And then you recently had what we call a nodal return, meaning that your destiny shifted probably about 2 years ago. The collective North Node was right here. It's now over here, but it was over here. So you probably felt a shift in your energy, or at least a reevaluation in what you wanted to do with your life.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back 2 years ago. Like we've had a lot of things in the last few years that have been shifts. So I'm trying to isolate down to 2 years ago and what that might have been. I'll have to ponder on that one. But definitely have had several of those where, and I think about 2 years ago is more of like I was thinking it was more of like a settling into where I'm at. But no, I think there was a couple things that, like I said, I'll have to ponder on that one. But that's really cool to know.
Yeah, we'll have to do a deep dive. And right now, Venus and Mercury and Sun are all right here. So this past month, they've been traveling over that area of woundedness, maybe bringing up some things. bring up
Gotcha.
some things to let go of that might have been happening. So as planets travel over a certain part of the sky, they hit you natally, right? So this is where that last total solar eclipse was.
Okay.
Kind of over your sun, moon, your Mercury, your Venus.
Gotcha.
So your sun and moon are very close. You were minutes after a new moon, or hours after a new moon, which means that you actually get 3 progressed lunar cycles. That means you get 3 chances in your life, at least, to kind of bring through evolutionary energy for yourself.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, there's so much to learn. I'm like overwhelmed.
There's so much to look at, right? Right? Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow,
that's
that's
very
really cool.
smart.
Very, very cool. Well, cool. Well, you got anything more you want to chat about?
I think that's all I can, unless you have any other questions for me. We can talk metaphysics too, but that could be another podcast.
Yeah. No, I think I'm good. Any questions for me on anything? I know I've been asking you most of the questions, so.
Well, let's see. Maybe you can let everybody know that's watching my channel where they can find you.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
So website is wealthenergetics.money. And you can find me on YouTube at Wealth Energetics, and got a lot of really good content on there pertaining to financial strategies, wealth strategies, and doing more of what the wealthy are doing than the middle class. There's a lot of stark differences between those two thought processes, kind of like the difference between the two different types of astrology. One's maybe a better fit for you than the other one, right? So maybe point you to a deeper truth than the other one. So
Yeah.
some similarities.
Millionaires use tropical and billionaires use sidereal.
You said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yep. So yeah, do some stuff on there. And then also, bioenergetics has been a big part of my life. And so share things there. I've got podcast interviews with a lot of chiropractors and some other people in the financial space. And we just go into all kinds of good stuff on there, just information, education around, different ways to think about money and how to be prosperous and abundant. That's really my passion, is sharing that with everyone. It's the mission I'm on, and love sharing tried and true principles around money and inner work that help you get there.
I love it. I love it. I think our next topic for our experts panel should be responsibility. I don't know. I feel like there's an energy of how to take care of, that we need to kind of talk about too. So
yeah,
I think I'll put that in our group and see if you guys want to talk about that. So
yeah.
All right.
I'm always down for stuff like that. So.
Yeah. And you guys can find me at drdani.com, DRDANI.com, or learn.drdani.com if you want to check out my free courses and my regular courses. And of course, sign up for summer school. If you know a little bit of astrology, you'll be fine. If you don't, you can take the free archetype course and get ready for it. It's going to be very useful. I'm very proud of this course. So I hope to see you all there.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Well, it was great connecting. Have a good
You
night.
too, Jeffrey. Thank you so much. Have a happy Friday. Have a happy full moon.
All right. You too.
And I'll see you
Talk
later.
soon.